Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports.
Only 8 months till impact.
And today, I've got something very special to share with all of you. I'm sure a lot of you folks are familiar with the 1922 classic children's story, The Velveteen Rabbit. But for those of you who aren't familiar with it, here's a little backstory. Written by Margery Williams, The Velveteen Rabbit chronicles the story of a stuffed rabbit's desire to become real through the love of his owner. During my childhood, my sister and I loved this story ever since our mom read it to us, and over the years, I've seen several versions of this story, whether being stage, television, or film. Some versions that I remember being the 1985 animated version narrated by Christopher Plummer, and another one from that same year animated by Hanna-Barbera. Also, I heard that The Velveteen Rabbit was the inspiration for Rankin Bass's The First Easter Rabbit special. Anyway, the film version of The Velveteen Rabbit I've chosen to blog is one that I don't know if a lot of you guys have heard of before. And believe me, I was hoping to blog this for many, many Aprils. So, without further ado, released in the United States on February 27th, 2009, the movie is The Velveteen Rabbit. So, on for the plot of the movie. Toby Morgan is a young boy, but feels the loneliness of his strict grandma and his increasingly distant father. His discovery of the magic attic offers a safe haven where he finds a stuffed rabbit his late mother left him before she passed away. His tears transform the rabbit into a playful animated rabbit, and his amazing animated adventures begin. Rabbit's one wish is to become a real rabbit someday, and Toby's wish is to have a happy, supportive family again. Through lessons learned with the help of a swan and a horse and the transforming power of love, both wishes may have a chance to come true. So, what do I think of this version? Well, in my opinion, this has got to be one of the most underrated films I've ever known about. And to further explain what I'm talking about, let's move on to Mustang notes. The film was directed by Michael Landon Jr., who directed several underrated romance films like the When Calls the Heart films, Love's Enduring Promise, and Love's Long Journey. It was released by Feature Films for Families, Family One Films, and Believe Pictures, and it was distributed by Anchor Bay Entertainment, Thomas Nelson, and Vision Films. Filming took place in 2000 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and the film's special effects were done by Intrigue Productions. However, the film did face a little bit of trouble. You see, it was illegally telemarketed to over 500,000 telephone subscribers in the United States. Verizon successfully sued Feature Films for Families for the practice. Now, to be perfectly honest, folks, the very first time I ever saw this movie was sometime during my college age when I rented it from Netflix, and I thought it felt pretty different compared to not only the book, but also the two animated versions that I mentioned at the beginning of the blog. Anyway, to me, I like that the movie is mainly set around the holiday season at Toby's grandmother's home, and I think the cinematography is pretty good. But my favorite parts of the film were the animated sequences where Toby is playing with rabbit, horse, and swan. Question is, why does this happen though? Well, the answer to that is very simple. It's part of children's imagination. Think about it. If you were a kid playing with your favorite toys, you'd imagine yourself on a fun animated adventure. And in my eyes, I think the animation is absolutely breathtaking, with the characters being hand-drawn, while the environment is a mix of both hand-drawn and CGI. Also, I find it very thought-provoking that the weather could become stormy depending on how Toby feels. Plus, I think the song Amazingly Magical Mind, sung by James Conley, is absolutely beautiful. And like whatever you imagine from the Pagemaster, it's the kind of song that influences you to use your imagination, and that your mind can be amazing and magical if you put your mind and heart to it. As for the story, well, in my opinion, it feels like an expanded version of the Margery Williams book, while also focusing on the relationship between Toby and his grandma. Plus, like a few other films that I looked at before, this film shares a pretty good moral about growing up. And now, let's move on to the film's cast. Our main lead, Toby, is played by Matthew Harbour, who's known from films like Equilibrium from 2002, Two Summers, and I'm Not There from 2007. And so far, this film is his last one to date for some reason. Anyway, to me, Toby seems like a very sensitive and sympathetic character due to him dealing with the loss of his mother sometime prior. He barely spends any time with his father, and he's never played stickball before. Plus, I think Toby has a very expressive and vivid imagination, and I think he has a kind, loving heart. Also, I like that Toby wishes to have his father over for Christmas. However, I was very scared when Toby got sick due to scarlet fever. Also to note, I think Max Whitaker does a pretty nice job voicing him during the animated sequences. Next we come to the title character, Rabbit, voiced by Chandler Wakefield, whom before this movie acted in Moving McAllister. In this film, like in the book, Rabbit is a stuffed animal that Toby's late mother left in his grandmother's attic before she passed away. And I like that Rabbit becomes alive and animated after a tear drops from Toby's face. In my opinion, Rabbit is a really adorable character, and his voice shows a bit of curiosity. Also, I think the bond between Rabbit and Toby is just so sweet. And after being accidentally left behind at the Christmas tree lot, Rabbit longs to be a real rabbit. Also, I thought Rabbit was very brave to save Toby from a burning tree. Next we come to Swan and Horse, voiced by Ellen Bernstein and Tom Skerritt. These two are toys who used to belong to Toby's grandma Ellen and his father John. To me, I find these guys to be fun characters, even though Horse can be pretty selfish at times due to him thinking he's very important, and Swan seems like the eldest and wisest of the two. Plus, I like that part of their job while playing with Toby is to help children face reality. Next we come to Toby's grandmother, Ellen, played by Una Kay, whom was in Snake Eater 3, 2004's Noelle, and 2001 A Space Travesty. In my opinion, Ellen starts out as a strict, no-nonsense woman, but as the film progresses, she slowly loosens up, and she tries all that she can to make Toby happy. Some of my favorite scenes involving her is when she and Toby decorate a Christmas tree, teach him how to ride a bike, and where she drives a car. Also, I thought it was very sweet when Toby calls her Nana, since grandmother can be a pretty long name. Also, nowadays, every movie that I've been watching lately that features a grandmother makes me think of my own grandma, who sadly passed away during November 2023. We also have Toby's father, John, played by Kevin Jubenville, whom was in Fly Away Home, Disney's Ice Princess, and Twitches 2. In my opinion, even though he doesn't have too much screen time, I find John to be a very workaholic and no-nonsense man who expects his son to be a little gentleman. And I find it very sad that John hasn't spent much time with his own father when he was a boy, and that he and Toby have never celebrated the holidays together since his wife passed away. But thankfully, after Toby falls ill from scarlet fever, John regrets his behavior and he decides to be a loving father again. Last but not least, we come to Toby's late mother, Sarah, voiced by Jane Seymour, whom was in Disney's Heidi movie, 2020's Friendsgiving, Little Italy, A Royal Christmas, and Wedding Crashers. Like John, she too doesn't have a lot of screen time, but Sarah is mentioned a lot throughout the film, and I thought the part where she interacts with Toby in animation was a very tear-jerking moment. Plus, I think her song, Love Makes Everything Real, which is on the extended cut, is just so touching that it makes me tear up in happiness. And now, let's move on to my final words. Overall, the 2009 Velveteen Rabbit movie has got to be one of the most underrated films I've ever known about. While several parts do stay true to the original book by Margery Williams, I like that the story focuses on the relationship between Toby, his father, and his grandma, and the bond between him, Rabbit, and the other toys. And that it shares a pretty good message about growing up, dealing with the loss of a loved one, and that love is what makes you real. Plus, I think the animated sequences are very breathtaking and thought-provoking, and I think the live-action cinematography is very well done for the time. So, if you folks are fans of the Velveteen Rabbit book, then be sure to give this movie a watch. And trust me, it'll make you laugh, smile, even cry. And so, I give this movie a 99% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me next time as we look at a new film starring the famous Disney genetic experiment from outer space, Mustang Power.